have Jeri Slone with us today, and she is going to tell us a little bit about ICD. Welcome, Jeri.
Welcome, Travis. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your background, and then we can jump into ICD.
Well, I'm Jeri Slone. I was born and raised in San Angelo, a proud 1978 graduate of Lakeview High School.
All right.
At a young age, right after high school, I went to work in the field of helping individuals with intellectual disabilities
Okay.
through MHMR for about a year and a half. My husband and I moved and lived in the hill country 5 years, working with exotic animals, game animals, and
Okay.
then we transferred to South Texas. And in 1986, we came home to San Angelo,
All right.
and I went to work for the Institute of Cognitive Development,
All right. I guess tell everybody what it stands for.
ICD.
Oh, I'm sorry. You did.
Yes.
We always say ICD, so you
It's a
said
lot
that.
easier.
Yes.
And when you hear that, you think we're some big, huge institution.
Mhm.
But the founding board, the whole purpose of our program was to provide services to individuals with intellectual disabilities. And so in 1978, our first group home for those individuals was opened. And then somewhere along the way, the founding member, Laura Lee Harris, used to be Bachman, decided that there was a great need for a shelter for victims of domestic violence. So
Okay.
in 1979, the family shelter was opened. And both of these programs, the group home and the family shelter, were some of the very first ones in the state of Texas.
I was
Yes.
amazed by that
Yes.
when I heard that.
And so the shelter has operated since 1979. And then in 2019, we were contacted by the San Angelo Health Foundation about an interest in us taking over the Mosaics Red Wine Child Care Center.
Okay.
So in 2020, in April, 2 weeks after COVID broke, we officially took over the child care center. So now we have 3 programs operating under the corporate umbrella of the Institute of Cognitive Development.
Okay, that's a lot of people don't realize that. And number one, probably the ICD Institute of Cognitive Development. They're like, what is that? So I'm glad you explained it. And
I explain it to people that we're an umbrella agency, much like the Children's Advocacy Center,
okay,
because they have CASA, they have their different programs underneath,
okay.
and ICD is an umbrella
Well,
agency.
awesome. And I guess I didn't introduce myself. I actually work for for ICD, and I am the Educational and Developmental Director and Donor Relations. So that's a long title, so I'm glad I didn't have to put it up on the screen. So, but even real quick, last night I had a presentation for the Lady Lions, and boy, they didn't know any of that. So I'm glad we're putting it out there. That way the community can know that it's more than just the family shelter. Those that do come to bring their kids to the Red Wine Child Care Center, they'll know it's more than just that. And then obviously the last but not least, the transitional residency.
Yes, and as far as the child care center, when we took over, we renamed it, and actually in honor of Tom Early. People don't realize that.
Okay.
So it is the Early Red Wine Child Care Center.
Okay, cool.
Tom Early was the president, the very first and only for over 20 years, president of the San Angelo Health Foundation,
Okay.
and has done so much for he and the foundation for San Angelo. And before that, he was with the United Way in San Angelo for many years.
All right. Well, what we were going to kind of go over is just tell us a brief overview of what we'll go ahead and talk about the Early Red Wine Child Care Center first. Just what exactly is that? Like a brief overview.
It is a public child care facility. We provide services to any child between the ages of 6 weeks and 6. And during the summer, we provide school-age children care for summer care.
Okay.
And We're licensed for 164 children, but we really only have room for a max of about 118.
All right.
And we are one of the few child care centers that we have not set a limit on the monies through the child care management system. Is a program through the Workforce Solutions of San Angelo,
Okay.
of the state actually, and it helps low-income families with their child care.
Okay, assist them with the cost.
Them.
Okay.
They have to qualify, but CMS pays less than what our weekly rate is that we charge.
Mhm.
So a lot of centers put a cap on the number of kids they will take through CCMS, and we don't do that.
Okay.
And so on an average, we stay at about 45% of our children come to us through that CMS program.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other differences than the other child care centers here in town?
The original focus or the special provision of the child care center when Mosaic opened it in 2004, I believe, was 25% of their children would be children with special needs.
Oh, okay.
And while we provide those services, we really have, after having gone through COVID, have not been able to focus as much on that. And we have now built our stability and our enrollment and things like that. So one of our big focus is going to be going back to that. We originally spent a lot of time and received referrals from early childhood intervention and from the school system.
Okay.
And then we do have therapy agents who come in and provide speech therapy and different other kinds of things to the children in need.
Okay, services for those kids. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Okay, so that's a really good thing to know. That's a big difference in a lot of the other child care centers here in town. And how would one kind of inquire about it if they're interested in bringing their child?
If they have a special needs child, they would just contact the child care center
Okay.
at 325-777-0035
Okay.
and ask if they have any, if we have any openings, and then talk about the needs their child has.
All right. Well, that's very interesting. And let's go ahead and move on to the family shelter. That's who I basically promote here in town and the surrounding 15 counties. But maybe a brief overview of the family shelter. We're gonna have the director of the family shelter here on soon, so we'll just do a brief kind of overview of the shelter.
The family shelter is a shelter for victims of domestic violence. You must
Okay.
be a victim to qualify for our services. We provide residential care and services to individuals who are victims, and our goal is to make them survivors of domestic violence.
Okay.
We're a unique program in that most of the programs in the state of Texas only have a 7 to 14 day stay. And our stay can be much longer. We start out with, up to a 30-day stay, and then based on the services that the victim wants and what we have to provide them, they can stay longer. It's
Okay.
very hard to change somebody's life in 7 to 14 days.
Oh yes, I don't. That's virtually impossible, I think. Right.
And for a long time, we did not publicize the location of the shelter. But with all of the gains in technology over the last 20 years, I have found that those who shouldn't know where it is do, and the general public's were a mystery to them.
Okay.
And so we no longer hide the address, and we're working to educate the community on those services that happen behind our doors.
All right. Yes. Yes. So that's one of the main jobs of mine. Whoever will listen to me, I go tell them about the shelter and what they do. So that's very interesting. Is that the biggest of the three, the family shelter, or?
I would say, well, when it was just two, it would definitely be.
Okay.
I would say that the child care center is just as big programmatic-wise as the family shelter.
Okay.
In fact, they probably have more staff because of the staff ratios we have to meet through our minimum licensing
Okay.
standards for the state.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good. So we'll put up some numbers and stuff later, as far as more information on the child care center and the family shelter. And then I guess the last but not least is the transitional residency.
Yes, and that is our Stonebridge group home. We have 13 very special individuals. Many of them have been with us for 20 and 30 years. 2 of them, who are blind, have been with us since 1980.
Wow.
We are their home, and our program is licensed through the state of Texas. We are considered a long-term care facility through the Center for Medicare Services.
Wow. Okay.
So the programming comes from the monies come from the federal government through Medicaid monies, and they go to the state, and then the state pays us.
Okay.
We have very stringent standards. In fact, we have the same standards as any state school, and then more because we have state licensing standards as well. And it's really nice to see the consumers when you go in. It is their home, and they feel at home. And that's very important to us. And our goal is to teach independent living skills, where they might someday live on their own and graduate into living on their own with case management.
All right. So you talked about a couple of the residents being there since the 80s. Is there like an average stay, or do it just...
Some of our residents will be here until they go to heaven with the Lord.
Okay.
Because they have no desire to go anywhere.
That makes sense.
There's not a time limit at all. It's based on us being able to meet their needs and what their wants are.
Okay.
If they prefer to move elsewhere, then they can.
It's up to them.
It's up to them. Most of them are their own legal guardians, so they can make those choices.
Okay.
There's nothing that makes you feel better than, having a big party for them, a Christmas party. And, while they're functioning in adult bodies, their intellectual functioning varies from anywhere from about 4 years to 11 or 12 years.
Okay, wow.
So,
that's very interesting.
They're just as excited at Christmas as an 11-year-old or a 4-year-old.
Okay, well that's
an emergency alert.
Yes, it is. Well, what I was going to say is, a lot of people don't realize that there's those folks out there, and that's a big need.
It is a big need. And I'll tell you that the individuals who function at the highest level are the hardest to serve.
Gotcha.
Because typically they don't show a handicap physically, and they want to be like all the rest of us. They want to have that normal life, get married, have babies, and live on their own. And it's quite difficult sometimes for them to understand that sometimes that's possible, but sometimes it's not. And they need much more care and assistance than what they think they do.
All right, and so do some of them do have family that come to visit them?
Oh, yes. We have some very active families, and we have others who aren't. And then we are their family. And that is our big focus with every single person that lives there is we are a family. And how do you treat family? And everything is focused on family. We have family-style dining. We have all of that.
Well, that's very special. That's special, and a lot of people don't realize, like I said, that there's that big need for those folks who...
And for those, I talked about the higher-level individuals in functioning. They want to live on their own, and so if they choose to go out on their own in the community, you might see them living on the streets. You might see other things, which, we try to bring in adult protective services, but being their own guardian also prohibits some things. And so without assistance and case management, they usually end up in jail.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad we have that here for them here
Yes.
in San Angelo. As far as the future I guess let's start with the family shelter.
Actually, I'm going to start with a future of ICD as a whole.
Okay. Sounds good.
Right now, the family shelter is at 79 Gillis. That's across the street from the Performing Arts Center. Our group home is located at 20 South Coinheim, which is Bryant Boulevard North.
Okay.
And the child care center is located on South Bryant, close to leaving the city limits of San Angelo. So we are spread out every which way.
All right.
And we were able, through the purchase or taking over the assumption of the child care center, through many years of hard work, we have been able to purchase all of the land and property where the Early Redmond Child Care Center is. And for those of you that have any knowledge of Mosaic, it is Mosaic's old headquarters.
Yes.
And we have two very large buildings. One of those is the Child Care Center, and one was the admin offices for Mosaic. But through this, we've been able, our future and our desire is to be able to build a new shelter on this property, and to also be able to build a group home on this property, where all of ICD's umbrellas underneath us are in one spot.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. All right. So.
And Stonebridge, the group home, is in an old doctor's apartment building that used to service Angelo Clinic Association. Now, I am telling my age.
Well, I think I was actually born in that building.
Really?
It's not there anymore.
So you're telling your age, too.
Yes, pretty much.
And they deserve a home. They deserve a home where they each have their own bedroom and don't have to share. And now, don't get me wrong, they have big, nice bedrooms, but they need a home. And so I'm also very excited about that, to be able to have that goal of providing them that. In a nice yard, and just be able to go out and sit in the backyard and relax and that kind of.
So we'll be sharing those plans here very soon on what that is going to entail.
Yes.
Specifically, details, right?
Yes.
So we'll look forward to hearing more about that. As far as the community of San Angelo, what would be some ways that you would say that they could help any of the three?
Any of the three. If you have a special interest in any of the three, in the Child Care Center, we can use volunteer, quote, grandparents to sit and, they can't provide any direct services. They couldn't be by themselves with a child. But we have things that way. If you're a retired dance instructor, we could do some dance classes. Same thing at the family shelter.
Right.
So we always have a need for volunteers. Our consumers at the Stonebridge group home just love when a visitor comes in. And, they just bombard you and tell them all about yourself, and they would love to have some mentors that would just come and visit.
Okay. And I know a lot of times people, when they think of the family shelter, they think, what kind of products, or what is a big need for those clients that the shelter services?
We couldn't do what we do at the family shelter without the community. People are constantly donating. We do have a very sparse storage area, and so lots of times people want to donate clothing on a regular basis, and we really have nowhere to put it. So we recommend that, the biggest majority of that people would take to Russ Street. We do take some, but if we took everything that people wanted to donate, we'd have our own thrift store. And I'm sorry, we have nowhere for a thrift store right now.
We have no room, right?
And we have grown so much the last 3 years that I have no room to start a thrift store, no desire at this time. But we have 17 bathrooms at the family shelter. Can you imagine the amount of toilet paper and bathing, shower, shampoo, all of that, body wash? We have a huge need for personal hygiene items and paper goods.
Okay.
And we cannot take makeups or anything that have already been opened due to cross-contamination. But, if you've bought a pump bottle of body wash or shampoo, we can use that. And we have lots of people, and we have a couple of churches that they collect paper plates and paper towels and napkins and cups and things like that from their members, and then will bring it to us. We also have a need for bottled water.
Okay. And I know one of the organizations that I presented to asked that, and basically the way I described it is, picture yourself going to a hotel and you forgot everything.
Yes.
Everything you need in a hotel, because
everything
toothpaste,
you use on a daily
toothbrush.
basis for hygiene and in your household, cleaning items, laundry pods, laundry soap, all of that we need. But we need it for, an average of 35 to 50 people at a time.
And a reminder, it's open 24 hours a day,
Yes.
7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yes, they're there. And also, if you come by and no one answers the door, you have no idea what's going on behind those doors, but you're welcome to just leave it by the front door,
Okay.
and we will get it.
All right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, that's been very informational, and I hope our listeners that listen to the podcast are pleasantly surprised, and maybe even have ideas have popped into their mind how they can help.
Yes.
And so I appreciate you coming and sharing with us, Jeri, about the ICD, Institute of Cognitive Development, and what that entails. And again, we'll post some phone numbers on here, or we'll add them, and that way the community can feel free to help in any way they can. So I appreciate you being here again, and with that, we'll go ahead and say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, and definitely we're going to share some more detailed information about the shelter later on in a later episode. So
Thanks, Travis.
thank you for being here, Jeri.